Welcome,
This
everyone.
meeting is
Dr.
being
Anthony
recorded.
Criniti IV here, also known as Dr. Finance. You're on the Dr. Finance Live podcast. Welcome, everyone. I hope you're all here. We got a very special guest today, Darren Prince, folks. Darren Prince is an incredible person. He's one of the top sports agents out there, celebrity agents. He's an international best-selling author of his memoir, Aiming High, and he's a global advocate for addiction recovery. I mean, he's got some of the biggest names under his company. His agency is called Prince Marketing Group. He represents people like Magic Johnson, Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, Oscar De La Hoya, Jerry West, just to name a few. He's going to tell us all about that. So welcome, Darren. How are you, sir?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me.
Honored to have you here, man. Really honored. I mean, as I've been researching you, I'm just like, wow, this guy is just incredible. Like, I mean, top notch. So, Darren, before we get started with your story, can we start with maybe like a 30-second snapshot bio? I mean, I just did a mini intro, but like a 30-second version of that, because I know you can do a little better for our audience to let us know a little bit more about yourself. And then we'll get into your story right after.
Sure. I was born and raised in New Jersey, grew up in Livingston, New Jersey, started a very successful mail order baseball company in the 1980s, had great, loving, supportive parents. Eventually, it evolved into sports and celebrity autograph signings, and then we started the agency Prince Marketing Group in 1994. But along the way, I struggled with a lot of inner peace, inadequacies, feeling of less than, inadequacies, not being a part of the world, and eventually had a high-level opiate addiction that brought me to my knees until July 2nd, 2008. I had my own spiritual awakening. That's when life really began.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Darren. You did that perfectly. I didn't time it exactly, but I'm sure it's on the 30 seconds. So that's great. Darren, we're going to get into your story now. So let's start back from maybe childhood. You grew up in Livingston, New Jersey, which I believe is relatively close to where I'm from in Philadelphia.
Yes.
You want to tell us a little about your childhood, maybe years under 10, up to 10?
Yeah, it's just like I said a couple minutes ago. I had a great, loving mother and father, sister I'm close with to this day, a lot of friends. I think ultimately for me, I wasn't really much of a student, really didn't take much interest in school. And they immediately threw me into some label at a very young age, at 7 or 8, as somebody that had a severe learning disability. I was put in very small classrooms because of it. And I think it just did a number on my psyche and my self-esteem. Even though from the outside it looked like I was a perfectly normal kid, by not speaking up and taking that into the world, I think is where a lot of problems came internally. And it's also why I'm so passionate when I speak to youth and teenagers and grammar school kids to not be the next Darren Prince of old. I might have climbed to the top of the mountaintop in the sports and entertainment agency, but I completely lost sense of self along the way.
Thank you, Darren. So Darren, I actually also was a big fan of baseball cards growing up. Mm-hmm. So and I think we're around the same age. So around like the mid 80s, I think that's when.
That was it.
Yeah.
Mattingly, Strawberry.
Yeah.
I mean, Puckett.
1987
right.
Topps.
Eric Davis was a beast. Mark McGuire, 85 Topps Olympic card. All right.
So I just want to speak to you from like an 8-year-old to 8-year-old perspective. Okay.
Yeah.
If we were the same, around that same time, we're our younger selves, I would be like, if I was interviewing you, I'd be like, whoa, incredible. Because to get to your level at that stage would have been like a dream come true. Like, wow, you actually are making money, that much money off of this. I wasn't making any money. I mean, I was just going and collecting. I mean, that was cool. But to take it to the level you took it is like the superstar version of that. Can you tell us a little about that experience? Because I think that part is extremely cool.
Yeah, I mean, it was incredible. My dad was always a huge motivator and mentor to me. Had a direct mail coupon advertising company. Used to own a couple drugstores, and excuse me, I had a challenge one night from my intro to business teacher, Elliot Lovey, who I'm still very close with to this day. And took a group of the classmates and said, I want you, and you to go home and make a business overnight and come back and bring me that idea on that business. Now, in my mind, I already had a business. I just wasn't profitable. I wasn't up and running. I took all my friends' card collections and I bought them from 5 different odd jobs that I had, from working at a pizzeria. I was working a stockroom at a sneaker store. I was a busboy. I had a newspaper route, was riding my bike, dropping off newspapers. And then I had this little side hustle selling packs of gum, which you remember, the Juicy Fruit, the Big Red, and the Wrigley's. You'd be able to buy 10 in a strip for 99 cents. So I'd bang them out for a quarter a pack and 2.5 times my money and go through strips every single day right out of my locker. And so when I came home that day after school and I told my dad, I already had a plan. I already had a vision. For some reason, there was a convention that was happening, a baseball card show right up on the highway on Route 10 at a Holiday Inn, which now is no longer the Holiday Inn. And my dad like asked, where'd you get all these cards? Like, what do you plan on doing with them? And who buys them? And I go, well, Dad, first off, I need insurance. And here I am, a 14-year-old kid asking my dad for insurance. He's looking at me like I'm crazy in 1984. And he goes, well, now I can get it under the homeowner's insurance. What do you think you have? You know, God forbid, there's ever a fire or a flood. And I said, about 8 or 9, probably around that range. And he's like, well, I'll call the homeowner's insurance in the morning and I'll get you $1,000 worth of coverage. And I remember like yesterday, I'm literally in my pajamas and I'm tugging at his pants because I'm sitting on the carpet in front of the couch. I go, Dad, 8 or 9,000. He's like, wait a minute. How in the world do you have 8 or 9,000 in cards? How do you know they're worth this amount and who's going to buy them? So I run back upstairs. I get a price guide long before Becca was around called CCP, which was Current Card Price Guide. It was a newspaper that would come once a week, like the Wall Street Journal, that showed all the values fluctuating up and down. And I also had a plan because I pulled out this big ad, like huge newspaper. And I said, hey, for $25, I can get a table in 2 weeks and I could buy, sell, and trade. So he was my motivation. And I spent every day after school for, I'd say, the next 10, 12 days. Steve Simon, who's been my voice since I was 10, now runs my agency, Prince Marketing Group, shared the table with me. So we always laugh about it. We split whatever the cost was. He went in for the fun. I went in for pure profit. And I knew on that day that it was more of a personal mission that I was on, to show everybody that, hey, I might not be the best student, but I'm onto something. And I made over $1,000 on that Sunday afternoon at 14 years old.
Yeah, I mean that's just incredible to be thinking like at that level. I'm just thinking about like just kids that age. They're not thinking. The average person is not thinking about that. Like I had a big collection. I had Darryl Strawberry. I had the Billy Ripken.
Oh yeah, man, I made
a
crazy
says,
Billy Ripken story for you. Yep.
But
I made a lot of money with that one.
But all that said, like, so I was involved with this, but no one that I knew, even the people working at the stores that were adults, probably weren't thinking in the level you were. I mean, that's just really.
No, and I always had a knack from my father's brain with creativity and marketing and staying ahead of the curve. And I started really investing into my own personal brand. And originally the company was Baseball Card City, and my dad came up with the name Prince of Cards. And that was it. And I started, running full page ads, spending $700-800 a week, sometimes more, with Sports Collectors Digest, which I'm sure you remember. Yeah. And back in the day, in the 80s and 90s, I mean, that publication was 300-400 pages thick. I mean, that was the Bible, and if you were a big time player in the business, you would spend, $500, $1,000 a year extra just to get it FedEx to you before anybody else, because you literally can find a buy on any given page days before the internet and, make up for, 6 months of business expenses with the right collection or moving the right product. It was just a really special time. I was the first kid in high school and possibly the state to have a cell phone. It was called Bell Atlantic when I was 16 years old. It was in a leather case with a rubber antenna and a big heavy battery on the bottom. And it was in my locker. So in between class, I would go onto the phone and get my messages and call different stockbrokers back. I aligned myself with a great network of buyers that saw the vision of vintage cards being a super investment. And then I aligned myself with some of the top people in the industry. I don't know if you remember the name Alan Mr. Mint Rosen. He
Yeah.
passed away right around the time my dad did in 17. Alan passed in January. My dad was in February. And he was a marketing machine. Anytime I do any sort of interviews now within that world, I always tell this young generation that's making a fortune off these cards, like we all have Alan Rose and Mr. Mint to thank, because literally, I think Sports Illustrated did an 8-page spread on them in the issue where Mike Tyson was on the cover knocking out Michael Spinks. That's how much of a mouthpiece he was to bring awareness to the industry. He was a very dear friend of mine, so I kind of just, was by his side as much as possible to build my brand at such a young age.
Who was your favorite baseball cards? Like all the cards you had, like which one would you
Um,
actually break the rule and say, I got a motion for?
you asked that because once a year I get interviewed by like that publication, like people in that world, because they know I'm still somewhat, involved in it when I bring athletes there for signings. It's a weird one. I'd probably say John Littlefield. It's a very rare error card from 1982. And it was called a reverse negative. And this was before the Billy Ripken error card. I was mesmerized by the fact they were so incredibly rare. What happened was the printing press printed the card, and 99.99% show him pitching naturally as a righty, and a handful of them got made where he's pitching as a lefty. And I sold my first one that I didn't want to sell, I think when I was 16, and I made about $500 on the sale. And I remember I cried. I was so upset I didn't have another one. And my dad taught me a lesson: you can only sell it one time. So maybe another one will pop up. And oddly enough, I got back into card collecting and investing about 2 years ago. And I must have about 5 of those right now that are graded with PSA. And they're very special to me. Anybody that really knows the origin of error cards, and that card knows the rarity of it.
When did baseball cards really start coming about? Was that 1987? Would you say when Flair and
Yeah,
Tom
I would say probably 80, even more so. I'd probably say even 86. I think Jose Canseco, the 86 Donruss, that's when, that card became, historic. And then, 87 and all the national conventions that were happening, all the stores that were opening up. And like I said, we had Alan Rose, and we had Josh Evans from Leland's, who passed away a couple of years ago. These guys were, they were the face. And I was like, just this young kind of OG in development that like made sure I was attached to all these guys doing it at a crazy level. I mean, I was 16 years old. I was probably making 25, 30,000 a month buying, selling, flipping cards, and made quite a name for myself nationally in the hobby as well.
My pops told me a story when he was younger. Back in the day, they used to have the baseball cards, and they would put them in the spokes of the bicycles. You're talking about Mickey Mantles and things like that. Yep. It didn't matter if it made a great sound. That's how the value was.
Everybody did that, and between that and all the mothers that threw their kids' card collections out, it was like a broken record. I used to say, well, we need to all thank them now, because if you didn't put them in your bicycle spokes, and your moms and grandmas and your aunts didn't throw out your card collections, wouldn't have a business right now. Supply and demand,
Yeah, they created a smaller supply, which drove the value of them up, and now they're more marketable. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And another funny thing, being in the real estate business here in Philadelphia, we did a lot of demolition. Carried concrete bags when I was 7 years old. We used to basically go into houses and tear them apart, and I can't tell you how many times we found like cards, but they could have been worth something. They were just torn apart inside the walls of people's houses. They would put all these baseball cards inside.
I can't even imagine what might have been there. Yep. Yeah, I can't even imagine.
Yeah. So Darren,
and I honestly believe that there's still stuff out there, because it seems like every once in a while I read a story online about what's known as like a find, a historic collection, an 80, 90-year-old guy that passed away and left it to his family, and that were just old school. They're not on the internet. It was purely based on passion, not for profit. And now the family's set up for life because a collection worth tens of millions of dollars exists. And, they just go to the right auction company. Kenny Golden from Golden Auctions, probably the leader in the field right now by far. He's a dear friend for many years, and the stuff he comes up with is incredible.
So if they did find a Mickey Mantle behind a wall of a new house, like someone can do something really good with that, right? Like they can sell it no
Oh,
problem.
absolutely. I mean, I think the big thing right now is PSA, the grading system, PSA and Beckett, but PSA is far and away the leader in it. And I think there was like 8 that recently sold for a few million. They're saying there's about 4 perfect gem in 10s that have been graded and slabbed over the years. And I had those cards in my hands because Alan Rosen was the one that discovered that find, the 52 Topps cards up in Massachusetts. I think it was around 1986. And there was about 60 to 75 of every card, including the Mantle rookies. And at the time, he wanted maybe, I think, 5 to 10,000 for the really good ones. And I was just never somebody that thought about buying and holding something. I was in the business to buy, sell, flip my money, turn the deals, go on to the next deal. And they say now any of those 10s that are in existence, they're owned by such wealthy individuals, but it could be a 30, $40 million card now. The gem
That
in
high?
10.
Really? They're
Yeah.
that high?
For a gem
Wow.
in 10, a 10 has not hit the marketplace. I believe a 9 did. That went for maybe 5 to 7 million. I think each are going for a couple. Don't hold me to that, but I mean, it's incredible what's happened to that card. I mean, I think in many ways as rare as the Honus Wagners, and I had a couple of those that I sold. I think the Mantle, being New York, the Yankees, I think that 52 Topps Mantle might possibly be the holy grail now of the hobby. You really have to be an advanced, sophisticated investor or collector to understand the rarity behind the Honus Wagner and why only a few doesn't exist, because he was an anti-smoker and he forced the tobacco companies, which was the only way kids can get cards in the 1909s and 1910 and 11, to stop making his card. But apparently 30 or 40 of them got out there.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Thank you, Darren. Darren, this is a short digression, but I think it needed one because I mean, it tells the story and shows your passion for the baseball cards, which really led to your career path. So, what was the next step of your business?
So I sold the business like right around the time after I was 19. I went to college, didn't do too well. Just knew it wasn't for me. I was paying my roommate not to go to class and answer the phones, and packages being shipped in and out all day from UPS and FedEx. I wound up on academic probation and they basically eventually just left school. And I was at a convention one in Arlington, Texas, and I remember I saw Muhammad Ali there and Mickey Mantle and Joe DiMaggio and a bunch of these sports legends, and I saw a line wrapped around the corner from fans, and they're all holding different pieces of memorabilia. And I started asking questions and realized what happens are these promoters go out, they deal with the agents, they book whatever it is based on time or the amount of autographs, and then these collectors come in from all over the country, sometimes all over the world, to get their favorite sports hero or celebrity, if there's celebrities there, to sign something for their wall for a gift for a loved one. And then you get to take a photo with them. And I thought it was just incredible. I was like, that is so cool. And I think a lot of that too was, even though I had the financial success and the notoriety in my little world of baseball cards, I thought, wow, this is way cooler to have access to work with these type of people. And through a mutual friend, probably around 1993, I reached out to Harlan Werner, who was Muhammad Ali's marketing agent, became a mentor of mine, dear friend to this day. And we put our first autograph signing together with Muhammad Ali in the early 90s up at a hotel suite in Boston. And it was just a life-changing experience to be with, the greatest of all time, and his assistant, and it was me and 3 of my boys, and to get that time with him and to talk to him about just life and hear his stories. And it was just something I became like obsessed with. And I think, yeah, there was a part of it too that, like I said, I was attracted to the fame, the celebrity part, because you got to remember, I'm still dealing with my inner brokenness and wanting to prove to people that Darren Prince arrived. So the money was there with the cards. There was some notoriety within that industry. But now I get to a point where I could be around Muhammad Ali and Magic Johnson and all these people. And that really became attractive to me. And Harlan eventually introduced me to Magic's team, started booking signings for him. I wound up getting Pamela Anderson on my own, Chevy Chase, and Smokin Joe Frazier, your beloved Smokin Joe down in Philly. And I used to spend a lot of time at 2917 North Broad Street in his iconic gym.
Blue Horizon.
Yeah. And so I just went full steam ahead in that business for a few years, and it was amazing. It was, you're buying boxing gloves, getting them signed. I had a team of 10 employees, boxing, shipping, wholesaling. And eventually what happened was I didn't want to get out of the business, but I don't want to fully give away the story because it's in my book, Aiming High, but I got in some trouble for selling some fraudulent Michael Jordan autographs that I was unaware was fraudulent. And the authenticator was praised by the Bible of the industry as like the best of the best, and this is the only secondary party you should use. And when I found out about it, it was a big case in Chicago, big FBI investigation. I wound up refunding everybody's money that I could, because my dad always taught me a reputation is the most important thing. It's the hardest thing to uphold and the easiest thing to lose. And you only get one chance. The first time in my young life that I had financial problems, just trying to keep the business afloat, keep my reputation intact. And Dad came to my rescue again because I took him on a fly fishing trip in 1994 with my last $3,000 to my name. And he didn't want me spending the money, old school Jewish guy. But I said, Dad, we need this. Fishing's always been our thing. We're doing it. We're going to take a long weekend. And when we were out on that stream in Alaska, he looked over and said to me, what's your next move? And I was like, Dad, I really think I could become an agent. Like, the autograph signings are fun, but I think I could do a lot bigger stuff with these, amazing men and women that I represent. But I just don't have 8 years to go to law school. I don't think I could do it. I would go nuts. And he drops his fishing pole and he looks at me and goes, law school? Why do you need to go to law school? I was like, well, I thought agents have to be lawyers. He's like, Darren, life is about who you know, not what you know. And when you have access to the biggest entertainment, and the lawyers would give their right arm. You could go to Magic's house in Beverly Hills tomorrow if you wanted to. You can call Pamela Anderson up in the morning and say, hey, I'm coming in town, and go see her and Tommy Lee, or go down to North Broad Street and see Joe, or up to New Bedford, New York, and go hang out with Chevy Chase and the family, because I can go on and on and on. Why don't you talk to Magic and ask him if he would be your first client in this new venture? He goes, clearly he's stuck by you. He knew you made a mistake, with these Michael Jordan autographs. He goes, he knows about making mistakes. It was, a few years removed from the whole HIV announcement. And I was with him in Michigan about a month later, and nervous as can be. And we always have time with one another alone to catch up on life. He's so personable and cared so much about me and my family. And it was almost like fate, because he asked me, what am I going to do? He's like, are you holding your own financially? I know this one stung, but you're going to make lemonade out of lemons. God tests great men and women, understand that. And he tested me, and he's testing you. And I was just shaking. My hands were sweating, and I got it out. I was like, look, I was with Dad. I got this idea. I think I could do bigger stuff, like speaking engagements, and these commercials can't be that difficult, and these endorsements. I think it's just finding the brands and networking. And he interrupted me, and he goes, do you have a good entertainment lawyer? I'm like, I call him Irvin by his real name, not Match. I go, Irvin, I don't, but I'll find one. He goes, well, you better find one, boy, because you got 2 years to represent me. You're a good person. I love you and your family. But understand one thing, don't just make this about me. If you don't use me, and knock on every door to bring in all the celebrities you can to build your agency and expand your reach for deal flow, our deal is going to be up, because life isn't about how successful I become. It's how successful I make you and everybody else around me. And then you do the same thing in paying forward to other people, because you need all different types of diversified revenue streams in this industry.
So wait, he was giving you
not me. That's not going to work. And I couldn't believe it. It was almost like he was giving me carte blanche to exploit him. And I just went wild after that. I went through all the clients. We incorporated Prince Marketing Group, started doing a little bit of advertising in the trade publications, whatever I could afford to, gradually as I came out of the hole. And from Magic, I went right to Smokin Joe. Harlan still allowed me to have the relationship with the Alis. We did some projects with them. And then it just blew up. It was Dennis Rodman and Pamela Anderson and Chevy Chase and Evel Knievel just, Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair eventually became clients. And it all started with those words of wisdom and motivation for Magic.
So Magic knew about the power of association, and he
Yep.
knew that by you using his name, you should be able to be a rock star as long as he gives the green light, which he did. So that's why he gave it a 2 year, the 2 year window. So in the
Yep.
back of his mind, he knew that if he trusted you, he knew that you were going to do great, but he wanted to let you know, look, use my name, and you can get a lot of things, but you got to do it. I mean, he understood all this, and that's
He
what he's saying.
understood it, and I think it's somewhat common in the business to to understand how an agent or a small boutique agency can just solely be focused on one talent. Now, you've got egos and you've got other talent that might not understand that model. But, when I look back at it, everything you said was true, because there's so many times where a project could come in and Hulk Hogan does it, or Charlie Sheen's a part of it, or Chevy Chase. And now all of a sudden they come to us, they say, hey, we're looking for 3 other sports icons. Who do you have? And then vice versa. If something comes in for Magic or Larry Bird or whatever it might, whoever it might be, now we have that relationship, and that's what it's about. It's about the relationship building. So anybody can get access to the celebrities. I've learned at this stage in my career. For me and my whole team of agents and others that work with me, I'm like, we need the brands. We need the brands that have the budgets, that love working with us, that we might get our foot in the door through a couple of our marquee clients that we represent, iconic athletes or celebrities, but it's about cultivating that relationship. So now, last week, Magic did a speech for Kaio Sara, big, multi-billion-dollar corporation. The CEO flew in from Tokyo, Japan, and we met Oscar Sanchez, who's the U.S. CEO, who's based out of Fairfield, New Jersey. And I mean, they were just so over the moon with his powerful keynote that now they want to hire him several more times. And the agency I dealt with that put on the event, I've dealt with them already a half a dozen times, multiple times on Magic and other celebrities. And that's how it happens, And he's always been somebody that's a cheerleader too. There was a time where in Washington, D.C., I think it was around 2009, Mike Huckabee was doing a big charity event, and they wanted Magic, and he just couldn't do it conflict-wise, and Smokin Joe was able to go. And he was super excited that, at least I was able to get somebody else in there, not to mention the love that he had for Joe, that it was a pretty amazing event that, he was able to host and be a part of. And that's important because, there are egos that are involved in this too. And you never want any celebrity to just think you're either neglecting one or putting too much effort into others. So it's always a balance. I got to make sure that I give each and every one of them time when it's needed. Carmen Electra and I still have hysterical phone calls 2-3 times a month. She's like my sister. We laugh our ass off. We still do a lot of business, but I think the personal relationships are everything, even for young entrepreneurs listening. Like, I have a book coming out in September that's all about, relationship building. And I think that's key. You can't just always make it about the money. You can't. Find out their birthday, find out where they're from, find out their favorite sports teams, movies, actresses, Broadway show they want to, maybe see, or take a loved one to find out what's going on in their personal life as much as you can. That's how relationships are built. That's how relationships are strengthened. So it's not just one dimensional about business. The business will come, but you got to build that personal relationship too.
Mm. That's beautiful, Darren. Darren, I mean, you hinted on so many things that we'll probably cover in different aspects today, but just to sum that last point up, and this I've experienced is my own industry. The top level of finances in terms of writers is Sharon Lechter, Robert Kiyosaki. They were partners for a book called co-authors Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I teamed up. She became my mentor, and I've learned this myself. I was just a university professor for 10 years. I didn't know anything about this industry until about a year and a half ago. And I felt the power of association, which she calls it, rub off. Like, as soon as I took her on as a mentor, she was my first interview here. I didn't even know I was going to have a podcast. I asked her one day, I was like, Sharon, can I interview you? And she said, yeah. And I was shocked. I'm like, Sharon, like I said, yeah. All right. Well, I went home that week and I thought about what else can I do? And I got to do something else with this. Let's make a podcast. So that's how this podcast started. You're like the 60 plus episode of this.
Amazing.
Now, Yeah, but all these people, the point I was trying to make was there was a lot of this started from, oh, Sharon was on your podcast. So
This meeting is being recorded.
okay. So yeah, we're back here, a little technical glitch, folks. So I was just saying, Darren, basically the power of association worked with Sharon, and I've seen it firsthand. And I just wanted to see if you have experienced a similar feeling. I mean, if was this real? Is it a real phenomenon that someone with influence, if you can lock arms with them, you can rise a lot faster?
100%. I mean, even the way that I met Magic, for example, like going back to him, I was dating this girl and we went to, it was one of the big fights. It might have been Bo Holyfield, the second fight or something. And my dad went crazy because I spent $8,000 on ringside tickets. And he's like, the memory's going to come and go. You're crazy. You should be reinvesting that money in your business. I mean, you're going to tell a kid that's making $300,000-400,000 here. At that point, I can't drop $8,000 on 2 tickets to sit ringside. And oddly enough, Harlan was already in talks with Magic's guy, Lon Rosen, who was a mentor of mine as well, who was his longtime player agent. And Magic was right in front of me in row 2, and I was in row 3. And I tapped him on the shoulder and told him that my friend Harlan represents Muhammad Ali. I've worked with, and we're trying to do business with you, get a proposal through. And, I just think sometimes, investing in yourself, putting yourself in an environment, sometimes people might think you're crazy. But I think that's what it takes, because I look back at that fight and I honestly believe if I didn't get to put a buzz in Magic's ear, who even back then was super business savvy, he never would call this guy Lon the next day and say, hey, I bumped into this guy, Prince, you remember my last name, and said, he works with, Muhammad Ali, and he said, apparently he's got something for us. And I remember there was no email back then, but I got a phone call on that Monday. The fight was on Saturday night, like all the fights in Vegas, and saying that, Mr. Johnson would like to pursue this opportunity that Harlan Werner sent over, for you on your behalf. And that was it.
And if that didn't happen, right, let's trace it in history, right? If that didn't happen, all the things that we're going to talk about on this podcast later wouldn't have happened, like the connection between Ali and Frazier and that whole big event, which we're going to tell a story in a little bit, right?
No, there's no way. I mean, and I think it all worked out the exact way, because if Harlan didn't plant those seeds, then it's like, what would my conversation have been? But to remind him that something's sitting in his agent's office at the time, and he's so savvy, even to this day, he pays attention to so many details. He must have just brought it up the next day. And like I said, on that Monday, I got the call that we moved forward with it. It was pretty cool. We did a big appearance with him down in Pomona, California.
Thank you, Darren. Darren, I just want to finish up your story a little bit, and then I have the next segments where I ask questions. They're about 1 to 2 minutes each. So from this point on, what was your next part of your story like? And I think that a lot of your purpose now has to do with your addiction, and I don't know if you want to bring that up. You're more than welcome.
No, I mean, for the first 6 or 7 years, when I speak all the time, I've done hundreds of keynotes the past 3 or 4 years, and I always say, like, I was a rock star. I leveraged the heck out of every client that I had to open up new doors, and I think what was once living to use eventually turned out to using to live, because I was hiding a deep, dark secret that I needed opiates in my system to be the so-called super agent that everybody was calling me. Yet I was, really, teeter-tottering on the brinks of death slowly, without even realizing what type of dark hole I was getting myself into. That, like I said, what was once, using to live, that started out as living to use, and it just happened so quick. But I was able to build a business along the way, very successful business. I got to be careful a lot of times with high school kids, because they're a lot smarter than we think. And sometimes they think, oh, look what he did and look how he made it. But no, I had financial issues along the way. I made a lot of mistakes. I was never in the right mindset. I put myself at risk. I put clients at risk. In the end of my journey as a opiate addict, I was really never a bad person. Doc. I was just a sick person. And the gig was up, living that double life. I just couldn't do it anymore in my own head. When I was home alone at night, I didn't want to wake up in the morning, and everybody would thought from the outset I had it all.
What was the rock bottom moment that changed your life? Because
Darren, if you don't mind, I had an overdose in Las Vegas in 2007, but I thought that was rock bottom. It wasn't. I just think I was given the gift of desperation, and God intervened on July 1st, 2008. My late uncle who passed away last September, Uncle Stu, and his then girlfriend Andrea were visiting my mom from Miami in New Jersey, and they just paid a surprise visit. And Steve, who runs my company, I talked about him earlier, was one of only a couple people in my life that knew how bad this got and knew what a problem it's become. And we were trying to figure out a way to get me into a spa because I was too important of a person to myself to ever go to rehab. And this woman, Andrea, walked in, and I never met her before. And she just looked at me and said, "Are you okay?" And I opened up to her. I told her I'm not. And I felt these tractor beams and told her everything, like no secrets whatsoever. And she's like, "Do you realize you're an addict, that your life's become unmanageable? Do you realize that, you have a disease?" And I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "Most importantly, do you realize that it doesn't matter if from Park Avenue or Park Bench or Yale or jail, the disease of addiction does not discriminate. Will take you to your knees and 6 feet under." And that broke my soul, because she's like, all this stuff that you have, she's looking at all the photos and prized possessions from my clients and articles and interviews. She goes, all this stuff means nothing because you mean nothing to yourself. And until you learn to love yourself within and deal with what made it get to this point and work through the 12 steps of recovery, you're never going to get there. And I said, "Look, I'm desperate. I'll do whatever it takes." And she put me on a detox plan for 36 hours, which was on that Sunday night, July 2nd, 2008. I came back from the gym. I was trying to work out, trying to do anything I can to detox. And my then wife was in the apartment. I came back from the gym. I called up Uncle Stu and Andre. They were back in Miami. And I just had a freak out moment. I can't do this. I'm calling the doctor to get whatever you only need to get. And my uncle grabbed the phone and said, "It's the damn disease talking already. You got to surrender. You got to put your hands up in a 12-step meeting. You got to find spiritual brothers and sisters that can help get you through this. It's enough of this bull crap already." And I just hung up the phone. I said, "I can't do it. I've been to those stupid meetings." My early 20s, I was arrested a handful of times for drug possession. So I was in an outpatient program, never identified with it. I hung up the phone, ran into the bathroom and locked the door. My then wife is banging on the door, fine, think I'm going to overdose or try to take my own life, because she was part of an overdose, 6-8 months earlier. And I'm going through all the medicine cabinets trying to find some non-narcotic anxiety pills. And out came 3 Vicodins, which was one of the 3 opiates I was addicted to, along with Oxycontins and Percocets. And, we cleaned out every medicine cabinet. So it was very odd that they popped up. But for a split second, it was a gift from God to me. It was exactly what I needed. But then the miracle happened. I had a white light moment, because I fell on my knees and I just screamed out to God, "Take the money, take the notoriety, take the business. I can't do this anymore without you. If you take me out of hell, I will spend one day at a time taking others out with me." And literally on my knees with tears, rolling down my face. It was like a lightning bolt. I felt this burning hot sensation on my right shoulder, and I heard a voice that said, "I've got you and you're finally ready." And I stood up, I flushed the pills. I wound up in the living room on the computer trying to find a 12-step meeting, which I found one in the upper 80s on that Sunday night. And there was no Uber back then. And I'm in the taxi cab, the window rolled down. And I'm looking up at this beautiful night saying, "Oh my God, for the first time in my life, I wanted to stay sober more than I wanted to get high. What the heck just happened?" And I walked into this church basement in the upper 80s. And the leader said, "Is anybody new coming back, sick and suffering?" And again, with no shame, in front of 150, 200 people, my hand went right up. I said, I'm Darren. I'm an addict. I'm suicidal and need your guys' help. I had such a great life. And I said, I'm desperate. I'm desperate to live and, deal with whatever the heck is going on. And I had about a dozen spiritual brothers and sisters that came over to me right after I said that share. And for the first time in my life, I felt something I was always looking for, a connection. It wasn't magic, respectfully, or a Hulk or Smokin Joe or Ali. It was these people that were once so badly broken to the core from whatever trauma, whatever unresolved issues, resentment, anger, insecurities, mental health struggles. And we just connected. We became a family. They told me, we're going to love you before you ever learn how to love yourself.
Wow.
Just make sure you put this first. Nothing can become before your recovery because you'll lose it all. And a day became a week became a month became a year. And that's when I realized the real gift is, if I want to keep this gift of recovery and sobriety, I got to give it away to other people.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's an incredible story. You know, Darren, I don't know if you know much about my past. I grew up in Philadelphia and saw a lot of my, grew up in a very tough area in the 90s, and, had a lot of tragedy growing up. My best friend killed himself when I was 18. That was my moment. I think I heard somebody, Brandon Burchard, he called it the motivation. He called it death motivation. I call it death inspiration, because around that moment, like, I wasn't motivated. It was just inspiration. It was like, it came from within. It was burning. And it took a while to get to that point. Like, there's a series of brewing, marinating. But when you get that moment, like you just described, it's just, you're on a quest. You don't need to charge anymore. You're fully charged forever, pretty much. And, I saw a lot of my friends come taken down because of the drugs. What's your thoughts on that, man? Like, did you have a lot of people around you that were also falling down? I mean, I'm sure.
I mean, I did. I more had a personal circle of friends. As far as the industry, I didn't, because pretty much everybody was, high functioning at their careers. I was just somebody that found a way to do it with something that to me was legal, because I was getting handwritten prescriptions from doctors. I just see now it's worse than ever. I mean, it wasn't good back then, and it's worse than ever now. And I just think it's really, ultimately, if I could do anything differently, I wouldn't. First off, because life turned out perfectly the way God wanted it to. But I would have asked for help, because I realized that's where the strength is. Instead of living in secret and living in shame and having this so-called persona that I wanted everybody to believe that I've arrived. I mean, it's not just the people from Livingston. I'm, respected at the highest level in the industry, from, actors, athletes, celebrities, other agents, managers, and, I needed it. I thought I needed it. That's what it was. It was validation. I'm still, as I said to Jay Shetty when I was on his podcast, it's like, here I am at the top, and I'm still looking in the rearview mirror, almost like this, to everybody else that verbally teased me and said I would never make it, and the teachers that doubted me and said, don't even bother going to college. And I mean, I used it as fuel, but again, because I didn't get in touch with, that inner, self, and start that healing process. That's why I got to the stage it got to.
Thank you, Darren. I appreciate you sharing that story. Darren, we're gonna move on now. I want to talk about your books, and we got some other questions that we'll bring back some parts of this as well. But real quickly though, you went to Temple University, I believe. Is that right?
No, Bridgeport.
You never went to Temple?
I went to a real temple because I'm Jewish.
Oh,
Emmanuel.
I
went to the University of Bridgeport in Connecticut.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I heard that wrong. I was listening to a podcast interview. Yeah, because I went to Temple for one semester.
You made it for one semester. That's good. Yeah. I made it for a year, but it wasn't much of a year. I had a 0.89 GPA, but I dropped out.
Oh wow! I'm sorry. What was your GPA?
0.89.
Oh.
Which I don't even know how that could be made up. I think it might have been a couple D's and 3 E's or something, but I think I went more or less. I partied my ass off, had a great time, played college baseball as a walk-on, and I just wanted to make my parents happy. But, they knew that I was onto something much bigger at that point. Back then, in '89, it's a little bit embarrassing that your son drops out of college. If you, remember at the time, most parents want their, kids education. So Dad accepted it because he saw what was really going on, and it was tough for my mom to handle for a while. Even with a lot of her girlfriends, knowing what I was doing and how successful I was at it, she still wanted that education. And I would always preach, I'm getting more of an education doing what I'm doing every day than any school will ever teach me.
And Darren, can I just confirm what you just said? So I was a university professor for 10 years, taught at 6 schools. I graduated probably 10,000 plus MBAs, helped them. I got to say, man, like a lot of those people that I graduated with, it's just, and this is just systematic. It's going all across the board. I feel like many people go to universities and colleges just for the reason you just said, which is, it's just a prestige thing for the parents. They make the parents look better. The reality is, though, they're wasting tons of money, wasting tons of time, and you are a success story. You are an example of, it's not meant for everybody. College is not meant for everybody. I mean, you proved that in your own life. Like, you went your own path and you did things that a college MBA should dream about accomplishing those goals with or without that MBA. And so I give you hats off for that, man. Like, you really took it to the notch that belonged to you. This was your story. So
thank you. And it's amazing because I got so many calls from different colleges now that I interviewed him once when he comes speak, that sports management is a legitimate major. And like, I was laughing with, some of my friends about this last week, like, who you got to want to hear stories from respectfully, or who you want to learn from, a professor or somebody that lived it. It's like Dr. Drew's very near and dear to me, him and his wife, Sue. And, we've talked about this too. Like, yeah, he is at the forefront of mental health. He understands substance abuse. But until you're sitting with somebody that lived it, that can talk that language, very different dynamics. And I lived it,
Absolutely. Darren, you got 2 incredible stories. I'd love to have you share in a little bit. But let's move to the next segment. I'd like to talk about your books. You got a book called Aiming High. If you want to talk about that for a moment, maybe 30 seconds, a minute, and then we'll go from there. Thank you, Darren.
Okay, so Aiming High came out a few years ago. It hasn't slowed down, thankfully. I guess with the pandemic and mental health issues that are going on around the world and substance abuse, my publisher, Anna David, and Krista McGinnis came up with the idea for the masterpiece. And after my dad passed away, I always knew he wanted me to write a book. I just didn't want to write about the celebrity life. A lot of the stories I take with me to the grave. But when I met Anna, she was like, you're so passionate about your recovery and everything you've been through. Why don't you take people on this fly on the wall journey of what it was like to, go through hell while at the top of the industry and come out on the other side. And that was it. And we came up with Aiming High. It became a bestseller in 4 countries. And, we send out copies all the time for people that can't afford it. They're on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, and it's more or less just my life and throwing it all out there, not holding back a thing in an effort to help people.
Thank you, Darren. And Darren, 2 stories, if you don't mind sharing. When I heard this, I was just like, I just couldn't believe it. And this is I believe it's in your book as well. That's why I'm bringing it up here. The first story, okay? So I come from Rocky Town, Philadelphia. Rocky, Hero, Mike Tyson, that whole generation. Muhammad Ali, the greatest, right? Like Joe Frazier. Okay, so we both had probably similar friends because I'm a martial artist, and a lot of the people in my circle hung out with Joe before he passed.
Yeah.
And the thing that I really blew my mind when I heard that story, if you can share that, when you actually introduced Muhammad Ali to Joe Frazier later on in life, reconnected them. And
it was 20 years ago in February 2002 NBA All-Star game. I don't want to mess with our camera, but if you saw my wall, I'm looking at it right now, the front cover of a newspaper, them holding hands, shaking hands, us sitting center court, me at a dinner the night before. So my dad and I and Harlan on Ali's side, and my boy Nick Cardasco, Nicky C, we spent years like around each of them individually trying to talk about the importance of them making peace and putting aside everything going on in the media and the trash talking. And I think it was Ali that finally extended an olive branch in 2001. It was on the front page of the New York Times that he said that Joe Frazier was a great man. He wanted to apologize to him and let him know that anything he did was for the promotion of the fight. And that was that was probably the first time I really had a good opportunity. And I was out in LA with Joe. Probably later that year, we went to see Harlan in his office, and Harlan saw real sincerity in Joe's eyes and his heart and say, look, man, me and the butterfly got to sit down. It's time. That's what Joe would call him, the butterfly. And Harlan called Lonnie, Muhammad's wife, and met with the team and Muhammad, and they wanted us to meet. And we tried making it happen. I think it was for the Ali premiere. They wanted us to come out for that, but Joe really didn't want to travel. And he goes, I prefer to do it when he's in Philly. I'm sure he gets here once in a while. And I got a call I think it was the day before the NBA All-Star game, because the game was on that Sunday. And that Lonnie and Muhammad wanted me and Joe and his son Marvis to come to Muhammad's suite for dinner. And, I'm out of my mind, just like, I cannot believe it's about to happen. And Harlan was stuck in Vegas, so he couldn't make it in on time. And he goes, this is history, Darren, you better go make this happen. Just, it's because this is as special and as big as anything we're ever going to accomplish. And I called my dad. It was 2.5 hours away. He wanted to be there. He couldn't get there in enough time. But, I just knew what I was about to experience was something, any world leader would have done anything to be in that room. And, when we're in the elevator, Joe didn't realize, because again, you're still dealing with that broken, insecure, low self-esteem, not feeling part of a worthy kid. I snorted a few Oxycontins in my hotel room before we even got into the elevator of Ali's hotel to go see him. And, we get to the suite, and Lonnie opens the door, gives Joe a big hug, and Muhammad's on the couch, and Joe kind of went underneath them and put his hand under his arm, and Ali locked in, and kind of Joe helped him up, and he put a big bear hug around Joe. And I'm just sitting there with Marvis, and my boy Nikki C was there. Like, we're just, me and Marvis especially, we're just, you could see the tears in everybody's eyes to understand what was happening. And we just had the most beautiful evening, because we're sitting there at this big, like, king's table in Ali's suite. I got the two greatest of all time to ever do it, the greatest rivalry in the history of global sports that we'll ever see, that not only transcends sports, but history and politically and historically, and what they represented was bigger than life. And right in the middle of it, Muhammad starts biting his bottom lip and doing that classic like that. And he looks at Joe. He goes, Joe Frazier. He's like, the gorilla in Manila. And Joe's eating his steak, and he drops his fork and knife, and he looks at him. He goes, hey, man, we just made up back there about 20 minutes ago. And we can kick your butt again. And I'm like, this is just, I get chills when I tell the story. Just, I mean, yeah, it was incredible. I learned to come to forgiveness with myself about my mindset, because I was in such a situation that I'm like, how did this 32-year-old Jewish kid wound up in the room with kings of kings, the alphas of all alphas? And I've seen it. It didn't matter if it was De Niro, Pacino, Tom Cruise, like Jordan, Kobe. Like, I've seen everybody around these guys. You are immortal when you get around people like Ali and Frazier. It just is what it is. Things are the Ali Frazier of this sport now, or the Ali Frazier of this competition. And, they were giants among giants. And just to have the privilege to be there with Muhammad's late friend too, Howard Bingham, and his Howard's son, Damon, who's since passed as well. I mean, it was just beyond incredible. And, I thought that was the highlight until the next day the NBA called me in the morning and said, we're going through the seat allocation right now. Would it be okay if we sat you and Joe near Muhammad Ali, because he's going to be at the game? I didn't say anything, because I know sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. Not only did they not sit us near each other, Joe, me, and Nick were in seat 3 or 5, dead center court, and I'm in seat 3. So the first 2 seats, 1 and 2, are open. After Joe came in, to a crazy applause and everybody going nuts, I start hearing Ali, 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 and I turn to my right and I see security escorting Muhammad with Howard Bingham. Muhammad sits right next to me. So then I got Joe to my left, I got Muhammad to the right, 2 billion people around the world watching this, and I'm so uncomfortable, because I'm like, why am I sitting next to Ali? And Joe elbows me, and he leans in, he goes, hey, boss, man. I said, yeah. He goes, switch with me. I said it'd be the biggest honor of my life. And I got up and the place just went. It was like July 4th times 1,000. I mean, Alicia Keys singing America the Beautiful, blowing kisses over towards Ali's way. And P. Diddy had his son Justin with him at a time. I got a picture of him coming over at halftime. It got to a point, Justin Timberlake and Britney Spears, every celebrity was trying to get photos with them, knowing what was going on. And I got to a point where Joe Muhammad asked me to just get security they didn't want to deal with it. They were actually having a real conversation for a couple hours during the game and laughing and enjoying each other's time. And, for two of the most gracious champions that ever lived that were all about their fans, I'm like, they're right. Let them enjoy this with each other. They realize that this is a message they both wanted to send, that if they can make peace, why can't other countries around the world, after years of being at war with one another? And just such a privilege to experience that. And I have photos of it, and the Associated Press pictures that were everywhere with me next to them was, hands down, the biggest highlight of my professional career. Nothing will ever come close to it.
Wow. Darren, did that ever happen before with Ali and Frazier? I mean, that coming together since, the era of their fighting eras back in the 70s, there was a great period where they just weren't talking?
No, there wasn't, because there was even roasts that happened and the Champions Forever shoot. And, I heard rumors, not just from Joe, but I heard from other boxing champions that there was a roast where Reggie Jackson had to break it up between the two of them, that once got into it at a big celebrity roast. And yeah, wow. So this was the one time I knew that they were both ready, that this wow. It was all about timing. And for them to basically move away from the promotion, and just as men that have grandkids and kids to come together, hug each other, and just bury the hatchet. And like I said, it was just mind blowing to be there to experience it. And, I've what I was touching on before, that I've come to grips with accepting that I wasn't in the right mindset. Because the beautiful thing about spirituality and recovery, when Joe passed in 2011 and Ali passed in 2016, I was invited guest to be at both their funerals, and I was sober and I was present and I was there, and I took in all the emotions, and I saw the family members that were so near and dear to me. And, that was just a beautiful way to redeem any sort of pain I have within myself for showing up in that mindset. Not that they knew it, but I knew it. And that's what mattered, that I did not know how to cope with this opportunity that was in front of me, and certainly didn't feel deserving of it. So to be able to, see them go both to heaven and, be there present and in the right mindset is a beautiful thing for me. And it created quite a bit of healing within my own soul, because, they both had a chance to, see the new and improved me. Joe had me for probably 4 years sober. And that's, spent a little bit of time around Muhammad and Harlan and Lonnie. And that's just, what else could I ask for,
Darren, that's the type of story, in 30 years from now, if we're just hanging out, I want to keep asking you this story again and again. It's like one, the little kids. Tell me again.
I tell it once a week. My girlfriend's young, she's 25, and we watched a couple documentaries on them, the HBO One Nation Divisible, and just for people to understand the historical and cultural impact. I mean, rap music exists today because of Muhammad Ali. Anybody will tell you that. LL Cool J didn't make up GOAT. GOAT was made up before he was even born by Muhammad Ali. Everybody knows that. He just took it with permission from Ali and used it in the hip hop and the rap world. But everybody knows, Ali was a poet. What he was able to do in and outside the ring, there'll never be another one like him. And Joe, just because he was more blue collar and he just came to do a job and didn't have that mouthpiece that Ali had. I think over the years he was almost second fiddle, but now that they're both gone, I know universally the love for both of them. Completely two different men from two different, backgrounds, but still so much in common that couldn't have done what they did without one another. They were able to use the competition within themselves to become better And Magic talks about that all the time when he speaks, that competition is healthy, competition is good. It, pushes us to evolve, it pushes us to do more, it pushes us to become better. And that's what those two did. They brought out the best in each other inside the ring, and they brought out the worst each other outside the ring.
Mm. That's beautiful, Darren. Darren, one last story from your book that I just thought was incredible. Like, this is going back, this is a historian in me. I just like the fact that I didn't even realize you had played a part in this. It's the Dennis Rodman, Kim Jong-un scenario in North Korea. I mean, and the fact, and I would love to hear your story from it. But when I heard it, and I heard that like you didn't even understand what was going on in North Korea, I was laughing so hard. I mean, that's just so funny that you played a significant role in one of the biggest events of the past 150 years, really. So, Darren, do you want to tell that story?
Yeah, sure. So I was contacted by Vice Media, I would say probably back in maybe 2014. And I didn't know anything about North Korea. And they just said they're filming a documentary with the Globetrotters and they wanted Dennis to come and would he have any interest? And I mentioned it to Dennis and he was like, yeah, dude, I'll go. And I think it was like within 6 months, Psy, the rapper, became huge. And honestly, I didn't know the difference between South and North Korea. So I told Dennis and he goes, yeah, let's go do it. And they kept delaying the trip, kept telling me there was issues with clearances and visas. And to the point I was like, I mean, is this thing even BS? Like, I hate going back to a client with something that they want to do and then I can't wrap up the loose ends. And finally we get it done, probably about maybe 8 months after they first contacted me. And I go downstairs to Steve in my office and I'm all excited, go, hey, I finally got the North Korea trip done for Dennis. And he goes, you mean South Korea? I go, no, North Korea. He goes, going to Pyongyang. Like, I'm trying to like pronounce the word. And Steve goes, let me see the agreement. He looks, he goes, are you nuts? He goes, bro, you can't send him to North Korea. And I go, well, he said he's going. He wants to do it. And he goes, you have any idea what's going on there? And he starts sending me links. And it was just hilarious because, we called Dennis and Dennis is like, dude, I don't care. I'll go because if I can open up some dialogue with the presidents and, something good can come out of this, just keep my ass safe. I'll do it. And he went and, we kind of knew when he was out there how massive it was historically because our phones, our emails, I mean, everything, our publicists were getting blown up. I really had no idea going into it how massive that was and what catalyst Dennis Rodman became for eventually opening up communication, with those people in North Korea and Kim Jong-un's team and, the president. And my boy Chris Vobolo went on every trip except the first one. And Professor Joseph Tulleringer, you can, look them all up online and they're like the three amigos when they go out there. It's been quite a while since they've been, but they really, opened up some incredible dialogue. A lot of people were ripping into us for attaching Dennis to something like that for such a long time. Now, all of a sudden, after the Singapore summit with President Trump, Dennis is being hailed and praised as a key component on how that dialogue got opened,
So you were part of all three trips, right? You did three, I believe.
Yeah. It was 5 trips.
Oh, yeah. 5?
Yeah, we had to find sponsors at times to help cover flights and airfare, like all that stuff. So I had to get involved, but it was it was a special time. It really was because that was another one of those redemption situations. Like I said, there were so many people just ripping into us and destroying Dennis, and then the final outcome was, wow, Dennis actually, might have done something pretty good here.
That is just a crazy story. I mean, that's so historical. Well, thank you, Darren. I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
All right. All right, Darren. So next question, and maybe about a minute or a minute or two tops. What feels better, being the celebrity or the agent? Now, I want to preface that question because for the longest time you were an agent, but when you hit rock bottom, you started to speak out about addiction and whatnot, and you had to learn how to speak in front of big crowds, and you started becoming the celebrity itself. Like you have a brand now. Besides Prince Marketing Agency, you are Darren Prince now. I mean, you've experienced both sides of the table. What do you like better?
I don't look at never looked at myself as somebody that's a celebrity. I might have notoriety from the industry that I'm from because those are the real celebrities. Um, I get a lot more joy, obviously, out of helping people and speaking to big groups and doing, big podcasts and big platforms like yours, because I know we're going to help save and touch a life or two, at least
Absolutely.
one or two, maybe a lot more. And yeah, the business is great, and of course, everybody loves making money and becoming successful, and it allows you to take care of people that you love, and give people opportunities when you have financial relief. But to me, it's still not even close. I just love the other side of talking about my mission and my message. I've said it on multiple podcasts. If I lost the money in the business tomorrow, we have struggles like anybody else. We have slower periods. The heartbreaking part would be everybody that's near to dear to me that I love so much to take care of, for my staff, to my family, and I'd still be me. I'd still land on my own feet, my own 2 feet, and figure life out because I found what my true calling is. I found my purpose in life.
Yeah. So, I mean, to scratch the word celebrity, let's just say influencer, right? Like
Yeah.
you have the ability to influence people now and to save lives on your own.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's different than being an agent of many other people who can save lives on their own. You can do it on
Exactly.
your own now. You can stay on your own 2 feet. I mean, do you think that feels better than?
Absolutely. I mean, if you would have asked me years ago, the ego in me would have said, "Oh no, the agent recognition." But there's nothing in the world like being able to help people now that are suffering with mental health and substance abuse. And I think they go hand in hand because certainly the testimonials and the support I got from my book, with Magic writing the foreword, and Jeannie Buss and Mark Cuban and so many others giving testimonials and promoting on social media. So I think need both so my story can get out there and stay out there. So it's kind of like the perfect storm. My relationship building through the agency life has now allowed me to build a brand in the world of recovery and mental health.
That's brilliant, Darren. And yeah, and just on your other point, yeah, we can definitely do a lot of great things together. Here in Philly, I don't know if you've been keeping up with the history here, but the past 2 years, we've seen a lot of tragedy with how this city is being run. I don't talk politics, but this is what I experience when I walk out the door. And we just had another friend of the family kill herself this week. I've experienced so much tragedy the past 2 years, brothers, and, just family, just tragic, horrible situation. Many of them depression and things of that sort.
Yeah.
I think when you hear someone like yourself's story, it really does connect with people. You never know what state of mind they're in, and if they just hear those special words and see it coming from a person that has actually went through this,
Yeah.
you can connect 1,000 times better than anyone just speaking out of a textbook. So I commend you what you're doing, Darren, and we need more. We need a lot more people like you. I mean, if we had 10,000 leaders like yourself, I mean, it's 8 billion people in this world. You can't do it alone.
Yeah.
We need a group of people that are strong
agreed.
leaders.
I've got my spiritual brothers and sisters that I put on Mount Rushmore of recovery, and they're all doing it too, with huge social media followings. And we live and breathe this. It's necessary. Like it goes far and above that. I can't keep what I have unless I give it away to others, which I know is important. It's just like I said, I've developed that self-esteem by doing esteemable acts for the first time in my life. It never came from the Prince Marketing Group side of my life. It came from this.
Thank you, Darren. That was brilliant. Thank you so much, Darren. Next question. What is the key to becoming a successful sports agent? So I want to just step back for a second. For those people who are interested, I mean, that are going that path in life, you are at the top of that list, and they're looking up to you, and they're trying to figure out right now, should I go this route? Maybe a person getting out of college or something that took up sports marketing. Like what do you have to say to them in regards?
I think anybody looking to get involved in the sports and entertainment industry, you have to just start at the bottom. You got to get your feet wet somehow, because you're not signing a top rookie or draft pick or iconic athlete and celebrity just coming out of college. You got to get involved with a firm that, whether it's a bigger one or a boutique one, where you can actually get the experience that you need and just network from within there. That's typically what I've seen, that others have literally started in mailrooms and wound up as partners in big agencies. And through networking events and just putting yourself out there. If you get with the right firm, doors will open. 100% they're going to open. But again, there's got to be a balance of not just the financial side; it's the experience and the relationship building, which are everything. Because if you're in the middle of an industry like this, and you're doing what you need to do to put yourself out there, do the right thing, schmooze and network, opportunities are going to come to you.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Darren. Appreciate it. Darren, real quick, I just want to read you something. You said something earlier that was extremely profound. You actually caught me up. It was one of my questions, but I just want to dive into this real quick, if you don't mind. My third book, The Survival of the Richest, right here, ties right into what you said earlier. It was actually the last page of the book. It was a 500+ page book. If you don't mind, I'd like to just read you something and follow with the question, okay? So it's really, the essence of it is some of to wrap up one of the big conclusions of that book. It's called The Survival of the Richest. And it says here, unity is easier than it looks with the right leadership. The bitterest national enemies have become great friends. Some examples include Italy and Greece, Portugal and Spain, France and Great Britain and the United States, the North and the South of the United States after the Civil War, and Japan and the United States. These examples demonstrate that peace and unity for all nations is possible and within our reach if we want it. But time no longer can wait for what we want. Our unity is now a matter of necessity in order to manage our shared struggles to stay alive on this planet. That was page 468, the last page of my written text. And the reason I'm saying this, because I want to just read you this question here. How can we make bitter enemies unite? And the reason I'm asking this question is because you told us the story of Ali and Frazier, but there are plenty of other examples like Mike Tyson, Evander Holyfield. They're actually, Evander Holyfield selling these things now. They're called ear bites.
I know.
Right. And it's pretty funny. Yeah. Tyson and Holyfield got on a podcast together, and it just was a great interview. But the Ali story with Joe Frazier, I mean, you got to see, out of all the people in this world, you were part of the 7 people in that room that got to see history make. And this is a microcosm of our problems today. We got Russia, China, and United States, and none of us are on the same page. And that North Korean thing tied right into this over the past 100 years, all because of these 3 countries. Yeah. You saw bitterest enemies get together. How can we use that example of what you've experienced to teach our leaders the right way to make this world one?
I mean, I honestly think if Joe and Muhammad were alive, they'd be getting heavily involved with what's going on over there. I think it just comes down to what I saw: communication and openness, and being, mindful to communicate. And a lot of times it could be propaganda that we're hearing, and what's real and what's not real. And I just think until you can get face to face to go through these issues, I think culturally, and I learned this when I was in North Korea. I was there for 2 days on one of the trips. That, we're born with what we're taught, not with exactly what we know for a fact. So when you've got these countries that are continuously having the issues of, going at war, threats continuously, culture just thinks that other country are bad people. And I think it's just continuously taught until the cycle is broken, and leaders need to sit down and break that cycle and communicate. So it's just crazy what's going on right now. Why? We all have one life, I don't care what traditions used to be or how, government used to handle other situations. Sit down and talk about it with other world leaders so everybody can just get along and communicate. Because look, these 2 guys were at war. They were at war in the ring. They were at war outside the ring. They were physically trying to kill each other in the ring. And that was the whole message behind it, that they wanted to inspire other countries that, hey, if we can make peace after all these years, so can you guys.
That's brilliant, Darren. That's brilliant. They say understanding is the opposite of prejudice, of racism. If people understood why would there be racism? If they've really like universal understanding, not like what they talk in textbooks. I'm talking about with the universe, the real knowledge, the real truth. They got
Yep.
that. Why would we ever have to have any of these issues?
Yep.
Thank you, Darren. Appreciate that. That was beautiful insight. Darren, next question. Should parents spoil and overprotect their children? There's a lot of people that have money that give their kids everything they want and just shelter them, but they turn out really bad and really confused about life. And I'm not trying to influence your response, but that's the preface to the question. Should people overprotect their kids? Should they spoil them? What's your thoughts on that?
I think you could spoil them to a degree, but I think if you overdo it, just looking at friends and people in my life, it does hurt more than it helps. They have to have their own appreciation of what it's like to work for something, and the value of money and the payoff that you get when you do the right thing, and when you work your butt off, and when you learn, you educate yourself, you surround yourself in the right community of individuals to try to gravitate towards their success. Because if you just keep handing, it's not going to be the motivation to do any of that,
Thank you, Darren. Darren, next question. Now you have a company called Prince Marketing, and marketing is like, I see it as the top level. When you're talking about PR, I look at it as inferior to marketing. It's the umbrella topic, the umbrella subject. So why is marketing so important?
I think marketing is everything. It's you can't just do something 60 days ago and then just stop. Marketing, public relations, building a brand, it never ends. I mean, there's always ways to reinvent, and there's always new platforms that are out there, as we know now with social media and the internet and different apps that, we evolve literally every month. There's different things that we're learning about on how to market Prince Marketing Group, and we're a representation agency. We have to market ourselves. We have to still market who we're associated with clientele-wise on the celebrity and athlete front and on the brand front. People just aren't it's not always going to be about word of mouth, although we get a lot of referral business. We have to continuously be, marketing everything that we're doing, because otherwise, even us, it's easy to be forgotten about.
And on that note, Darren, what are the qualities do you say you have that helped you become a great marketer? Because there's something special about you that you've done this so extremely well. I mean, you could write your own books in marketing in schools. I mean, what are those qualities that made you so successful?
I picked up so much from my dad. I'm such a detail person. Like, I literally, my PA, one of our great deal makers here, Mathilda, is with me, and I was in an airport in Vegas 3 months ago. I saw an ad for Flair Air, and I sent her the link. I go, how is Ric Flair not all over this company as an ambassador? And she reached out. Or hopefully we're going to be doing a project with them later this year. I think just being around it, I think that was the one thing that I love, to be creative and to learn, and to, even if you're on bottom and there's struggles, I think that's always where the challenge is, not just in business, but in life. Like, when our business is kicking butt, when everything's flowing nice and smooth, I don't really learn much about myself. I don't get further educated on my journey of business and in life. But when things are kind of going sideways and they're tough, that's really where I need to pay attention, take a deep breath. Yeah, I have the right to bitch and complain, but that's not going to do much until I find a solution to get out of that mindset. So kind of just the way I've always operated.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Darren. Darren, next question. How many financially successful older adults are still struggling with a lack of purpose? Now, before you answer that, the reason I'm asking that question is because you've been surrounded by very wealthy people, high point celebrities. I mean, there's people out there that have tons of money, and you and I both know just because you got money doesn't mean that you're standing on a core foundation. It could be a house of cards. Yeah. How many people there's so many people out there like that. So speaking in regards to that, how many financially successful older adults are still struggling with a lack of purpose, just from your experience?
I see it all the time. You know, money buys relief. Money buys the ability to care for other people. Don't get me wrong. I love it like everyone else, but you know, you have to understand your motive behind what you do with your money. And I think a lot of that relates into mental health and potential substance abuse and self-hatred, resentment, anger, whatever those emotions are, those traumas that are unhealed. You know, I say it's funny because I'm around some of the biggest CEOs in the world, and when it's a guy like Magic or Hulk or Charlie Sheen or like anybody that these big CEOs that in their own world are incredibly successful, but they become like little kids every time there's somebody that's got that notoriety on a global scale because they don't have that. And you know, that is when I see those type of individuals, it is almost like a little bit of a character flaw that they might have attained and achieved the success that they want, but now they get into a space where they're not fully comfortable in their own skin. Because I've seen plenty of big time CEOs at that level making 8 figures a year that are incredibly comfortable around my guys. They're not, or women that we represent, they're not a little bit too giddy or, you know, overexcited. It's almost like a mutual respect of them understanding what each other has accomplished in their own space and in their own field.
You know, Darren, you're basically a testimony to this question. You told your story. You were surrounded by all these people. You were making tons of money, but you weren't comfortable with yourself yet, and that took until 2008 when you hit rock bottom.
Exactly.
Yeah. Thank you, Darren. So basically, there's a lot of people out there, and how do we help them fix their issues? And you're saying just go to the court.
I mean, look, especially with big corporations or even small, I know there's decent insurance policies out there. I wish it would start at the top with these corporations or these, you know, smaller Fortune 100s. Doesn't just need to be the 500, even boutique companies. Like, there's got to just be a way where, you know, mental health is becomes so much more of a priority, because you're also bettering the bottom line of your business when your staff is going home to a more comfortable setting at night with their, you know, husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, family members, children. And by keeping it so taboo and still such a fragile topic, it's not helping the situation at all. I mean, I just think it's investing in mental health for everybody that works with you, and having time throughout the week where even all the executives can get together, all the employees can get together and just talk about life and what's going on openly. That will make such a massive change in the culture of entrepreneurs that are struggling. Not to mention those entrepreneurs bring that home, that mindset, and now regular people that might not be entrepreneurs but are super close to them in their world, now they can get the help that they need. It just has to start with being open to talk about it and comfortable, you know, not the stigma that's attached to it.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Darren. Darren, I want to approach purpose from a different angle. I want you to just briefly envision the greatest people in history that you, off the top of your head, okay? And that are alive today, both the ones that died and the ones that are alive. Think of the greatest people ever, okay? With the strongest purposes. Usually they're great because they have the strongest purposes, right? Now, let's say you strip their purpose away from them. And the ones that are still alive, you strip their purpose away from them. How much longer do you think they have to live? And I'll ask the question one more time again, but let me just preface that. So in my book, The Survival, the Richest, to make the argument that I did, which connected survival to finance, to economics, to biology, and to the great arguments of the greatest scientists, I had to do, my first part was a very extensive overview of survivalism, the science of survival. And my conclusion was that finance is an extension of survival. But the specific essentials to survival, this shocked me out of the most. Like this, I listed all of them, from air to water, all the things you need in life. Okay. When I went to mental, I called them mental immediate survival essentials. Purpose to live was at the top of that list. When I broke down the arguments, I couldn't believe it. I'm like, wait a minute, even more than the will to live. Because if you got a will to live, you got a reason, which means you got a purpose. So if you strip that purpose out of the greatest leaders in the world, you took their purpose away, right? How much time do you think they got to live?
I think everybody has something along the way of that purpose that is also a tremendous asset. It's not just when you get to the top of finding your purpose, you can teach so many along the way from all the adversities and the challenges that you went through. So, I mean, to me, I wouldn't think it's going to jeopardize any other timeline in their life. I mean, yeah, I know happiness and good health allows us to live longer, better quality lives, but I think there's got to be so much more that they could bring to the table, even moving aside from their purpose on kind of what it took to get there, you know, not just the top of the mountain.
Absolutely, Darren. Now, Darren, just to clarify, when I say purpose, I'm thinking in terms of Viktor Frankl. I don't know if you read a book from Viktor Frankl. It's called A Man's Search for Meaning. It's like the best book on purpose out there.
Yep.
He was a concentration camp survivor, and one of the things that blew my mind when I read that book, he really organized it very properly. And to paraphrase the three major reasons why we lived, the last one I put my own words because it was very difficult to explain what he meant. You know, the first two are obvious. We live for our work, we live for our family. The last one I called to live for the struggle because he was trying to explain some of the people in the concentration camp that didn't have family, they didn't have work. Like, why are they still alive? So I say they live for the struggle, right? So when we're talking about purpose here, we're talking about work, right? Like, you know, you got a purpose to go out and help people. I got a purpose to go out and help people. But there's other purposes. Like in your life, before you got your grand purpose, you had your purpose to, you know, for your family too. You probably wanted to live for them, right? Like those people out there that are stripped from their purpose, they may have other purposes out there. But if you strip all those purposes out, every single one of them, now it's a different question.
Yeah, I mean, I guess everybody has some sort of goal and purpose in life. It's you know, what do you do when that's taken away from you, and what do you do when, you know, it's stripped you? And obviously I've been around some of the great motivators, world changers, you know, what they've accomplished and how they've motivated others that they'll never even know, generations of individuals and families. I don't know, like timeline, like if you were to say, okay, you're no longer a recovery advocate and there's no more agent life, I think somehow, some way I would find something else that would create a new line of passion. That's the or some other feeling of excitement to get me out of bed, because I think the great ones, it's just the way the ones that I've looked up to are built. I think you just always, there's a will, there's a fight, and say, okay, well, this is what you've been doing the past 30 years. It's no more. It never existed. I think there's just a certain resolve and, you know, whatever that drive might be to eventually find something else.
That's beautiful. You said it perfect. I mean, you just got to find another.
I know we're live. Can I take a bathroom? Use the bathroom?
Oh yeah, you want to pause it for a moment? Absolutely.
Either pause it or.
Yeah.
What do you think we have left?
This meeting is being recorded.
Time-wise? Oh.
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, thank you, folks. The quick intermission, but yeah, Darren, we've been having a great discussion, folks, with Darren Prince here, king of marketing. He's got a marketing agency called Prince Marketing, top sports agent, top celebrity agent, and just a top influencer. I mean, he's changing the world with a lot of the things that he's accomplished in his life and setting the right example. So, Darren, we went a little deep with that last question, and I appreciate you humor me for that. But that was a good segue to one of the later questions. We're going to talk about purpose, and I think that'll be a good thing that you'll like. So next question, figure about a minute to 2 minutes each, and we'll make good timing. Do you ever worry about relapse?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been openly talking about it. I had a hearing aid implant put into the side of my skull. I just got the hearing aid 2 days ago, and I had to be put in the hospital for surgery. And, you know, I tell the doctors up front I'm in recovery. You know, I've learned from my sponsor there's a big difference between drug use and drug abuse. I had hernia surgery, I had 2 years sober. I don't ever get into a state where life gets so overwhelming because I've dealt with my share of crap. I've lost my dad. I've lost, you know, Smokin Joe in recovery. You know, have had health issues, ailments, been through divorce, broken engagement. my sobriety's never threatened by that. The one fear is always when I have to go into a surgery. It's the right mindset. It's, speaking of my spiritual brothers, it's becoming accountable. I stayed away from, real hardcore opiates on this one, but, there's THC gummies. There's a vape that I had to use in my luck. When there's real pain, man, you got to get through it. But you better have that rock solid foundation of recovery to call yourself out on your own bullcrap. I am not that person that's going to say, yeah, I got a free pass from my doctor, because you will not see Darren Prince ever again. Like I said, there's a very big difference between drug abuse and drug abuse, but I got through it. I mean, Matilda here, my girlfriend, my friends, I talked to them openly about the challenges that I had to go through on this one. But I'm able to come out on the other side because, again, I live and breathe recovery, and life happens. Just because you're sober does not mean, or you're a recovering alcoholic, does not mean you got to go in for a surgery one day and not get hooked on opiates. I don't care who you are. When that receptor gets hit, and when that, like my sponsor Steve always says, when the horse is out of the barn, I got to wrangle him in, and I better make sure I'm in the right mindset to understand that this is not a free pass. This is something life-changing. I lost my hearing at 25 years old. And when this opportunity came up, how can I not, explore it or look into it? And because a risk of relapse, no, I have to question my own recovery foundation if I feel that a surgery is going to send me back out there. Now, it doesn't mean that fuse doesn't get lit. I mean, like I said, I've called myself out 2-3 times during the past 3.5 months during these procedures, and was accountable to know that I can't have anything laying around the house. I just can't. Tylenol and Advil, that's it. I know when that beast gets woken up, if I don't wrangle him, all hell is coming with him, and all bets are off. And recovery doesn't come first. The business doesn't come first. My fix and getting what I really want to get is going to come first. And it's a beautiful thing. I've been able to experience this, honestly, coming up on 14 years that I've had challenges with it. And I had to, really, be accountable and stay very vigilant and stay connected to my spiritual brothers and my faith of recovery, because I know that inspires people too. It's a huge concern for people that come in off of opiates or any level of substance abuse addiction to get into recovery. You can't get into that place if you're, oh my God, what happens one day when I need to have my appendix removed, or God forbid heart surgery, or I break a bone. Like, you can get through it like a responsible human being, but that foundation, that better be damn rock solid. Or I've seen too many people that have had 10, 15, 20 years in recovery, and they've gotten complacent. And I used to see them at meetings or on Zoom meetings, and all of a sudden that fuse gets lit and they're not coming back. They are not coming back. So that's the only time I would say I get fearful about relapse, when issues come up. And I've got through, 2 root canals in the past few years and a couple crowns getting replaced. That stuff's easy, but this one was more challenging. There's no doubt about it. But like I said, that foundation was there. I called myself out on my own bull crap that second day of pain after the hospital. I knew I took something, not in the way of an opiate that the doctors said were okay to take. I found a compromise to get through it. And that second day, there was a time, man, here I am talking about living the spiritual sober life. That devil's woken up and he's telling my brain that there's pain. I'm like, hold on, there really isn't as much pain as I'm trying to tell myself right now. And remember who you are. Remember, don't forget what the beautiful spiritual 12-step fellowship gave you. Keep you from staying connected to that 12-step fellowship. And that's that foundation. That's all those meetings in the bank that I heard about years ago when I was getting sober. Go to a meeting. When life is great, run to a meeting. When life is bad, go to a meeting. And, because it's really reprogramming and rewiring the brain at times like that, at challenging times that happen where nothing is going right in my life. And, how do I get through it? Because for me, the simplest quick for so many years of my life was to take a pill, get high, get out of sense of self. No, I want to feel it now. I want to go through those rough, challenging times, because that's where the growth is for any of us. Putting aside mental health, substance abuse, any of that, it's those challenging times. And dealing with those toughest moments in our life that really allow us to evolve to our best selves if we're in that right mindset to get through it. And, that's it. I mean, I love when these kids sometimes, I spoke to 3,000 kids a couple of weeks ago. And one of the questions, do you think you'll be sober forever? I'm like, I will be today. I don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. Life is one day at a time for every single one of us. I have my protocol of what I need to do to stay on that sober path. But like I said, self-confidence to me in recovery is a huge liability. I know I'm pretty sure I'm going to go to bed sober tonight. And that's my focus today. I wake up tomorrow, I got to do it all over again.
Darren, do you social drink at all? I mean, is that even in your? You got to cut all that out now.
To me, the drug and the alcohol bone are connected to one another. I can go out and have a few beers and watch my crappy LA Chargers play a football game with you, but I'm the type of person that next morning I'm going to look for another couple beers. I'm going to say, hey man, let's go watch Thursday night football. Now let's do Sunday, the morning games. And before you know it, that receptor gets hit with some beers or some vodka cranberry. And believe me, I got resources. I have money. I'm going to find exactly what I want to find. And I did way too much trial and error to know who I am. And at the end of the day, I'm, a drug addict, and that will not change. My sponsor said last week, physical pain will go away. Your drug addiction never will. And people need to hear that, because I'm nobody special in the business world. And if you've got 2-3 days sober or no time sober, you're trying to get to the other side, I'm not any special than anyone else. I've just managed, for the most part, for the better part of 14 years, have learned to live in this spiritual, sober life. And I think a lot of it is, I always say, spiritual sobriety is everything. Not engaging with people, restraining pen and tongue, saying what you mean, meaning what you say, not saying it mean. The opposite of addiction is connection. So I have to maintain that connection every single day in my life. I mean, I was telling Matilda, who works with me here the other day, I could be high right now and nobody would even know. That's how good I was at hiding it. And that scares the living hell out of me. So I got to do everything I can to keep this first and foremost in my life, because, we're all con artists. We all do whatever we got to do to get that fix. And, I never want to be that guy again, ever. I'm not afraid of relapsing and dying. That's easy. I'm afraid of, God forbid, relapsing and living, because then I'm back in hell all over again. And I know too many people that it's too much of a struggle to get back. For me, it's not ego at all. For me, I would like it. I love the feeling of escaping. That's always who I am. I'm a feel-good junkie. Now I just do it in much healthier environments, whether it's working out more. My massage lady comes on the weekend. My girl and I travel as much as we can. We're taking a summer vacation in July to London, Italy, and France. Even food. I'm in the best shape of my life 6 days a week. I'm training, but I was overdoing it with sugar over the past 4 or 5 months. And, falling a little bit off on my cheat meals. It wasn't once a week. It would be every couple of days. There'd be one that I knew I shouldn't be eating. And first time in my life, had a little bit of high blood pressure. So I had to reel myself back in with my trainer I've known for 35 years and come up with a new diet. It's who I am. It's never going to change. I got to be careful about gambling, over shopping, anything that gives me sense of relief, instant gratification. Not going to change, man. It's who I am. Now I try to get it with business deals, helping other people, doing podcasts like yours, where I can't wait for it to go live, and we're getting messages from individuals that, I'm more than willing to send out free copies of Aiming High, or might need help getting into a treatment center. I'm aligned with Banyan Treatment Center. They have 14 properties around the country. I've got my own foundation, the Aiming High Foundation, where 100% of the revenues go to scholarship people. Those are my obsessions. Those are what gives me that euphoric high now, and I just had to replace it.
Hey Darren, we had a guy on here, Tom Chenault, became a friend of mine. He's going to be on Clubhouse tomorrow night. If you're not doing anything between 7 and 9,
Okay.
I'd love to introduce you to him. He was a
Okay.
former alcoholic, but he conquered that demon like 20, 30 years ago. He's about 20 years your senior, and he's a major radio guy.
Okay.
And he just lives by that message, same way as you. So I love to connect you guys. I mean, that could be a future episode because you can go on this podcast and stuff. I could definitely arrange for that. So just want to leave it out there. I think you guys, hearing your story, it's very similar to his. And I think you guys would probably become good friends.
Okay. Sounds good.
Darren, thank you, Darren. That was a brilliant response. Darren, next question, maybe a minute or less. How rampant is addiction in the celebrity world?
I mean, they have access to anything they need. I think it's, as bad as it's ever been with athletes and celebrities. And again, it's similar to me, man. I made it at such a young age. You don't even know who your real self is. You don't even know who your real friends are. You're giving notoriety, you're giving power, you're giving money. If you don't love from within, if you don't realize, what your motive is behind certain behavioral patterns and recognize and to deal with the traumas that might have been caused by family members, mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, ex-boyfriends, ex-girlfriends, teachers, you will wind up in a very dark place. I don't care who it is, or you're not going to have the quality of life that you deserve to have because, you'll be in self-sabotage mode. You'll be living in resentment. You'll be living in anger, fear. And, like the acronym goes, so you can either forget everything and run or face everything and recover.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Darren. Appreciate that. Darren, next question, similar. We're going to get into the money part a little bit now. How much money is wasted by celebrities?
I mean, I think athletes and celebrities are notorious for doing it. There's very few that really understand the long game of monetizing your brand. And I think a lot, take a look at, very unique transactional business type of opportunities. But when you're in your heyday, you should be looking for not only that, but you should be looking for equity projects as well, where it's ownership that really gives them that sort of diversified, continuous revenue stream. Because I think a lot of them really aren't taught. They don't know. And I think a lot of times it's either being, too embarrassed to ask when the reality is, look, you had a craft that you developed at such a young age. Don't be afraid to ask. Don't be embarrassed to speak up and say, look, I want to make sure I do this for the next 10 or 15 years and I'm set up for life, rather than surrounding yourself with yes people. And the worst thing is, aside from what LeBron James has accomplished with Maverick Carter and Rich Paul, do not hire your friends. Don't do it. Don't do it. Take care of your friends when you've got all that extra, income to do the right thing. But friends aren't going to give you the right advice for your career as an athlete or a celebrity.
Thank you, Darren. Darren, next question. How do you cure people who are addicted to money? And to preface this question, going back to Viktor Frankl again, he mentions a term called existential frustration. So people, they put money and power at the highest level of their purpose, when really once you got all that money, you got all that power, it's just, as he said, existential frustration. You're frustrated with your existence because there's something else beyond that, and you only realize that when you have that already, and you still feel like your self-worth is not there. There's something else to live for. So how do you cure people of who are addicted to money, who have money as their ultimate purpose?
I just think you have to find a balance of it. I mean, my girl's very young, and she's so caught up in like the whole Kardashians and everything on social media, and people buying nice houses and cars, and I hear stories all the time. But I said, look, I had it all. I was like, it doesn't ultimately buy you happiness. It buys you freedom. They're all temporary quick fixes. But what's it going to mean in your mid-40s when you have 2-3 houses that you can Airbnb and you can do as much traveling as you want, but you don't love yourself internally? You're still going to wind up in a dark place. And at that point, half your life is over.
That's a brilliant response, Darren. And I really appreciate you being honest about this, because I think the combination of both of our strengths answering this question can really resonate with people, because a lot of people, they see Dr. Finance and they think that everything's about money for me. Yeah. I wrote 3 books of how important money is. My first book was called The Necessity of Finance. It was for my finance students. But that doesn't mean that you should make money your ultimate purpose. It's a tool.
Right.
It's a tool, just a tool.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But no, money is a lot, but ultimately it will not make you internally happy. because that's just everything. I don't have anywhere near what I had in my heyday of earning. And look, we've lost, a handful of clients, but I've never been happier in my life. I got everything I need. There's always more room to grow. There's always more I want to do for my staff, to take care of them, my family, people that mean the most. But I got to a place where, I found myself, I found my soul.
And what's the value of that, Darren? Sorry to interrupt, but what's the value of that?
So what?
Right? The value of what you just said, finding your soul. Priceless, right?
It's priceless. There's no price tag put on that. I mean, Hulk Hogan saw my interview on Jay Shetty, and the day after Thanksgiving, I flew to Tampa to see him and his daughter Brooke at the house, and literally picked me up at my hotel and was like in tears. He goes, brother, I never really had a chance to watch it. He goes, there's just like a light around you, like when you speak, there's just, God is just like getting this message out through you, because he's always so spiritual, Terry. I call him Terry for light, his real name. And he because it really made me take a look at myself too. Even though I'm getting up there in age, he goes, it makes you really think, like, we all kind of have this purpose and this vision, but the way you just generalize that we're all up for grabs without being accountable, and why we act a certain way and behave a certain way. And, Magic said the same thing to me, and that means a lot because, here, I know that there's some extremely successful entrepreneurs that are out there that are going to be watching this. And hey, man, I got to the top of the world at what I did and what I do and what I continue to do. And it did not make me happy. Making me happy is finding the combination of my purpose, getting into that inner crap, into my soul that caused me to behave a certain way, to feel me, all the time, to feel the emotions of not being worthy of any of the success. And almost like I was so obsessed with the business end, almost in a way that I was running from the real problem. I don't want to address it. I don't want to deal with those demons. I don't want to deal with the pain, the rejection, and everything that I went through. And I wanted to stay in that place of look at me and look at you. Look at how it turned out for me and look how it turned out for you. Not a way to live. Not a way to live, and asking for that help is when it all changed. And I think, I love that question that we got into about the mental health in a workforce. It's so key. I think when I was at the White House 3 times when President Trump was there, he was a old friend from back in the Celebrity Apprentice days, and I got to speak to Kellyanne Conway and Governor Christmas. Was right around the time that book came out. I was helping with this opiate epidemic crisis, getting the message out there to kids in grammar schools. I was like, if they could just start in school even. You're going to have a class based on self-worth.
That's beautiful.
Everybody talked about feeling different because they didn't do good on a test. They did terrible playing soccer, or they failed a gym class, or biology has been really hard, or foreign language. Like, if everybody can talk about that together, about why they're feeling a certain way, the world would be so different. The next generation would have such a better shot. And I believe the numbers would drop drastically on mental health issues like depression, bipolar, suicide, substance abuse. And to me, it's such a simple fix, but why not also do that in the workforce? What happens when somebody's dejected after working on an account for 3 months and the deal goes south? You're going to go out with your friends, you're going to go to happy hour, you're going to do something to blow off steam. What's that doing? Honestly, nothing. And the same is said is what happens when you land that big account. What do most people do? They go out and celebrate. And how long is that celebration going to be? And how much are you going to push yourself on that celebration? Is it going to be a couple of drinks, a nice dinner, and get home and get back in the morning to that office, to your desk, and make it happen again? Or is it going to be you're taking off for 3-4 days and going on a crazy ass vacation and just blowing off steam? It's a balance, and it's trying to just be honest with yourself. Why are you doing it? Is it purely based on the fact that you're thrilled that you just accomplished something that made you feel really good as a entrepreneurial man or woman? Or are you just blowing off steam because there's some other stuff underneath that this is really a temporary fix of a celebration that in 2 days from now, you're still going to be back to that same place, no matter how much money you just made?
Darren, this, I think the past, if you can go back 3, 4 minutes ago and start from there, this little segment right here can definitely change lives. This whole conversation starting about 3, 4 minutes ago. I mean, you just said so many amazing things, folks. I hope you're really taking notes with this. And I know that there's someone out there that really it's ringing in their ear. And by the way, I want to say if Hulk Hogan does happen to listen to this, Hulk was one of my heroes growing up. Hulk, you got me in trouble in fourth grade. I'll have to tell you this story if I ever meet you one day. He had Hulk rules. That was his slogan.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
I remember me and my friends, we were chanting when he won that day. We went back to school, we were chanting Hulk rules, Hulk rules.
Yep.
And we had to stand outside of detention for after school for 3 hours and chant Hulk rules and write it like
him and Ric Flair are very near and dear to me in my office, and they're just very, very special men.
Wow.
That inspired a lot of us, generations of fans, decades and decades of fans, and everybody always has a great story, especially when it comes to Hulk too.
Yeah, you have a really cool job, Darren, being so close to them. That's awesome, man. So well, thank you. I appreciate that share, Darren. And I think that's definitely going to have a lot of impact. Just real quick though, you touched on this already. Maybe 30 seconds. Can money buy happiness? And you already hinted at this, but if you can boil it down in 30 seconds, can money buy happiness?
Yeah, I mean, I think money buys temporary happiness. It does. I'd be an idiot to say it doesn't. It allows you to, take care of people that you love, to give them reliefs when they're unhappy, when they're having health issues or job problems or relationship problems. But again, I still think all that is temporary.
Yeah.
Like when money is the sole focus for happiness, and you're not dealing with, is it a real genuine obsessive drive to success, or are you running from something? And when you're done with your day, are you taking those character defects back into your family life, where your mother, your father see it, your husband and wife see it, your children are affected by these behavioral patterns? If they're bad ones, if we know that we're behaving in a certain way or acting out, or like I said, have that drive solely because it's about winning and money and not finding that balance, I think everybody has a lot of work to do out there. I still do. I'm just in a better place than I've ever been.
It's never ending. It's a continuous life journey, even for the best too, I would say. Just to add to that real quick, Darren, I mean, you go to top investment, after college, I worked for the Vanguard Group, the largest investment company in the world. And I only made $25,000 a year. I made peanuts, but I loved that job. I would go in there and we talked to people. I moved $500 million in 3 years in rollover IRAs. Still only get paid 25 grand a year. Okay. But the point I was trying to make was all those people that I talked to, it's the same idea. What you're saying, like that, a lot of them were very wealthy, but a lot of them, a lot of people are not happy just because
they're not happy.
They're not happy. Yeah.
I mean, look, like I said, my staff knows I do everything I can to take care of everyone and do whatever I have to do. My mom knows the same thing, but I still think even as much, and no matter what it is that I can do, I don't think it's going to change somebody's trajectory on their personal beliefs of themselves. I think they're all quick fixes of feeling good at that moment. Somebody lands a big deal, they get a huge commission that month, or 4 of my top agents have a great quarter. And yeah, again, it's great in that moment, but then what's next? Or like, are you happy about what you accomplished then? Are you planting seeds for the future, or are you just marinating in the feeling that it gave you because you're suffering from something within, some lack of? That really needs to come to surface to understand that it's great to achieve things. It's great to create goals and to get to that level. But it's those character defects of acting out that everybody has to look within themselves to understand why they're behaving a certain way. And are they affecting other people around them? Which isn't right either. You don't want others to gravitate that are near and dear to seeing you live and act in a certain way, because you've got some healing and some clearing to do on certain behavioral patterns,
That's a brilliant response. Thank you, Darren. Darren, next question, maybe 20 seconds. How important is trust in relationships?
I think trust is everything. My dad taught me your reputation takes a lifetime to build and a second to destroy, and you only get one shot at it. I think personal relationships and in the world of entrepreneurship and business, especially in mine, trust is everything, everything. If you do screw up, be man or woman enough or adult enough to admit that you made a mistake and move past it and make that mistake one time, as my dad used to say. Don't make it a second time.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Darren. Darren, next question. My curiosity, really, for you, being around, exposed to the highest levels of celebrities. Many celebrities, I've always noticed, and I grew up in a humble family in South Philadelphia, lower to middle income. So we always, I think the average person's always curious about this. How difficult is it to become famous and have a family that lives a normal life? So that's celebrity, and then they got family. Are they capable of living a normal life, even though their parent is a superstar?
It's tough. It's interesting you said that, because about 4 or 5 years ago, there was a Comic-Con convention in Orlando, and I had Hulk and Brooke do it because it was relatively close from Tampa, about an hour and 15-minute drive. And we were having breakfast one morning before security took us over to the convention. And just being in Disney, I actually asked them the question, and I was like, Hulkster, what was it like with Nick and Brooke and the kids back? Were you able to? He goes, brother, it was near impossible. It took a lot of work just to get them out on vacations, and and you almost feel for it's a blessing, but it's a curse too, because here he is in his heyday with his kids that are little, that want to experience something with their mom and their dad, and you have to take all these precautions and do every single thing differently than the average Earth person, because it becomes a problem. You can't just enjoy what you want to enjoy because of the global sensation that Hulk Hogan became and the global phenomenon that he became. And I found it pretty fascinating that he answered it that exact way, telling me that it was really challenging. It wasn't easy at all.
There's no other way around it.
No.
Wow.
No.
Thank you, Darren. Darren, we're going to move into template questions, about 20, 30 seconds each, and we can wrap it up. We'll make good timing. Got a few here. Can one book change the world? These are pretty simple questions. Can one book change the world? Maybe 20, 30 seconds.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Darren. What role has networking played in your life?
Everything. Built my career around it.
Without having proper connections, you would not have been able to get to this level.
Exactly.
And that applies to anyone in business. When you got a small company, you still need to make, going back to your baseball cards, you made the connection to a guy who happened to be the industry leader.
Yep.
Which leads to the next question. Is mentoring important, and who are some of your mentors?
I think mentoring is important. You get to learn a lot from their years of mistakes, and you get to gravitate towards their years of success. So you save quite a bit of time and money and get right to, more of the success part of their resume. And, I think my father was obviously, Matt Rich Johnson's been when he was alive. I just gravitated and, absorbed as much as I can from these people. Now, just on a personal level, Joel Osteen's a good friend, him and his wife. I love listening to his messages, and Tony Robbins, and Jay Shetty's a dear friend, and Lewis Howes. I just love what these guys push on social media. Just listening to their positivity every day, because I get depleted too. I get drained too, and I need another source to get from others so I can push it out there and be the best me.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Darren. Darren, next question, and if you can't answer, it's okay. What are your favorite financial books? Now, when I say finance, I'm saying money, business. I mean, if you read any at all, I don't know, but if you did, do you have maybe one or two or three, or that you would have say is your favorite? Maybe you don't read.
I love Suze Orman. I think I just don't remember what it was that I read on hers, but I did read something probably 5-6 years ago. I think so much of it is discipline, and I'm as guilty as anybody. I mean, my dad's biggest concern when I was a teenager, that even though I was self-made, I still wasn't going to fully value money the way somebody else does. And I still do struggle with that. I'm overly generous with a lot of people because I just want to make others happy. It's very hard for me to say no. And probably one thing I could use a little bit more of is, learning to say no a little bit more and being more financially disciplined, because it has come easy to me. And that's a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, but I noticed, it's a good point you made, Darren, but I just want to add to this. I noticed a lot of people, when they try to cross over and stop being so generous, then they get another curse, right? The curse of being a stingy, like just miser. And there's no, like, that balance is an imaginary line, because if once you cross over, it's so much easier to be stingy, right? Like, and then you start
I
holding back.
I don't even think I could possibly have it in me. My boy Nick, who's dear friend and business partner for years, he represents Stallone, and we represent Charlie Sheen and Denise Richards and some other clients together. He lives in big, beautiful home in Beverly Hills. I live in a gorgeous high rise in Brentwood, and he's always riding me about buying another house. And I was like, it doesn't really do it for me anymore. Like, I have this gorgeous high rise that I'm renting, and my whole team works out of here, and then we've got the office back in New Jersey. And I was like, I'd rather just give. I'd rather just make others happy. I'd rather, if my foundation is short a little bit of money to help scholarship people, help get them into treatment. I've been blessed, so I feel you have to bless other people when you're blessed like that. And that's just it. I think for me to turn back, it is next to impossible. I mean, my mother and my sister can drive me a little bit crazy with their expenses, but they're my mother and my sister. I do what I can do.
Yeah, and if you did that, then you would change basically the mechanics of who you are that made you so successful, and that would be horrible. Because you're doing such a great thing. Thank you, Darren. Darren, a few more questions. We're almost done. Darren, do we need money to survive? Maybe 20 seconds.
I think we need money to survive for sure. It's just how much, do we actually need, depending on the certain situation.
Absolutely. Darren, next question related to that: is finance necessary for everyone? Now, finance, the science of finance, not what people think finance is funding. I don't like it that way. It's actually the science of ones, that we study to learn about money and other forms of wealth.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely a science to it. For so many years growing up, I would hear from my uncle and my dad, I don't care what you make, I care what you keep, I care what you save, I care what you invest. And a lot of mistakes along the way, a lot of mistakes. I'm just very blessed to be in the position I'm in right now, because, I look back at it, I was like, I could have been retired at the time I was 40, but I don't think retiring to me, making money or not, I'll be doing this until I can't do it anymore. I just love what I do on a professional level. And it's, when you find what you love, what you do, as the expression goes, you'll never have to work a day in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. So finance is necessary. You would agree, right? Yeah. And Darren, when I first got out of college, my first job at Vanguard was a retirement specialist. So I actually talked to people about retirement all day long. And you want to know one of the lessons I learned? Most people who retire in the true sense of the word, they actually die within around 6 months, because they lose their purpose. I noticed they wouldn't call back. They wouldn't call back about their IRAs anymore.
You don't have that stimulation anymore. All right, we got one more question. I got to jump on.
Oh yeah, Darren, absolutely. So real quick, what would you like to accomplish in the next 10 years or so? Maybe 10 seconds.
Just keep helping other people to become the best version of themselves.
Thank you, Darren. Last question: what would you like to be your legacy to this world?
What I just said. On my tombstone or gravesite, if it could say, somebody that went deep into hell from mental health and substance abuse came out the other side and sprinkled hope and recovery across the world to help others.
Thank you, Darren. And I want to conclude and just say thank you so much. I'm honored to have you here today. Any last concluding remarks or anything, Darren, that you'd like to add before we go? The floor is yours.
No, man, it's been good. Can't wait for us to help a bunch of people. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Darren. And folks, if you can, Darren will actually be in Clubhouse the first Friday of July. So that would be July 1st. It's between 7 and 9 p.m. Eastern time as the main guest speaker. So please make sure to be there. Thank you, Darren. Don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe Darren on all his social media platforms. Darren, what is your website?
My Instagram is @agent_DP. Facebook is Darren Prince. Really don't do much on Twitter. If people want to follow my personal brand, it's officialdarrenprince.com. aiminghighfoundation.org is our charity, and princemarketinggroup.com is the business.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Darren. Don't forget to buy Darren's book.
We'll talk soon.
Okay, thanks, Darren. Appreciate it. All right, folks, you've been watching the Dr. Finance Live podcast. drfinance.info is the website, so definitely check that out. And also, don't forget to check out the 3 books here on the wall here. The Necessity of Finance, my first book, wrote for my finance students about 10 plus years ago, and then the most important lessons in economics and finance, and then Survival of the Richest. Follow, like, and subscribe, and we'll check you out on the next episode. Thank you. Bye-bye now.